Good evening, everybody. I'm Brian Weinstein, and in a moment or two, we're going to be connecting with David Price. But first, I'd like to make a few comments. First of all, this is Divided We Stand. We're on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and VK, which is a Russian Facebook, and we are broadcasting live. Right now, it's 8 o'clock, roughly, Eastern Standard Time, but we are, again, broadcasting technically around the world. We may not have that many people watching, but in any case, we're happy to see you here. Also, if this is the first time that you've seen this show or this broadcast, please check us out on Facebook. The group is called Divided We Stand, and we ask that you participate and join our group. All you have to do is click join and become a member, and we'd be really, really happy. If you have a YouTube account, please join our YouTube channel, which is Divided We Stand. And the same can be said for those of you who are watching on Periscope and on VK. So, good evening. Thank you for showing up. I wanted to talk a little bit about something that really hasn't come up that much over the last 3 years, I suspect. But it's starting to eke its way into American journalism. I'd like to start off by saying I grew up in the 1960s with a multi-religious family. My father was Jewish, my mother was Protestant, and my sister's Catholic, my cousins were Catholic, my cousins were Jewish, and of course I am an atheist, though I was raised as a Jew. And growing up in a Catholic neighborhood, I quickly understood the idea of tribalism. I didn't know what the word meant, but I knew that people called themselves things, and they were proud of it, and they separated themselves from others through those tribalistic names. And essentially, those tribes were, I guess, best described as religious beliefs. And this is something that was a big part of this country in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But as I got into my 20s and 30s, and now as I am 60, I've seen a great change. And today we're going to talk about that change and something I think that we're all experiencing now, and that is that politics is right now the new religion, and that we are tribalizing our society, not through whether we are religious or not, because many young Americans aren't identifying as being religious, but more so identified as conservative or liberal. And that's where we're going to start off, and that's where I'd like to introduce my wonderful co-host. Yes. What did you do, Dave?
I didn't do anything.
No, look, I'm going to blame you anyway.
I say this a lot, but it bears repeating. Any mistakes, video mistakes, are Brian's. If I make any spoken mistakes, they're Brian's. If you think Brian looks better than I do, I think you better adjust your camera angle right now. I didn't realize, boy, Brian, did you come from a mixed up family? That explains a lot.
That certainly explains it. You know what I mean? So,
but Brian, it's good to be here tonight. And of course, people, we've got a big thing to talk about later. But Brian and I, we spend, all of 2 minutes planning this show. And I think I agree with Brian. It was his idea. But I think we do need to talk about the tribalism, because that will certainly play in tonight to the big news, which, of course, we do have a Biden team now. We have a presumptive. Wouldn't that be something if he doesn't win the nomination of the convention? I mean, that's a foregone conclusion. And we now have we have a president and a vice president to oppose 45. And what's his name? Dents, whatever. Oh, yeah, Pence. That's right, Pence. So it could be pretty interesting. But Brian, you get started. What is it now you want to talk about? Explain that again for me.
Okay. This shift basically from religious tribalism to political tribalism. And I see it every day. For example, I had to get a crown put on today, and I don't want to get deeply into this, but I was talking with the hygienist, and for the second time in a row, the conversation basically went to a place that dealt with tribalism. she started talking about the kids having to go back to school, and I was basically saying I don't think it's safe to go back to school. And from there, I realized basically what political party this person came from. I was hoping she'd do the tooth correctly, which she did. But the real point,
as far as you don't know what she.
As far as I know, right? I have no complaints right now. She did a wonderful job. But there's a tension right now, and Dave can explain more than anybody, and I'm sure he will, how that tribalism has affected his life so far on Facebook, and in my life, people with whom I normally would have some type of social relationship. I have no relationship whatsoever, and I'm glad that it's separated, which is, of course, why we have Divided We Stand. And a lot of people would say, well, tribalism isn't good because you have one group over here and one group over here, and they won't listen. However, and we can go into this later, there's a reason why we do separate. And I think there is a difference between right and wrong. But that's basically what it is, Dave, is that religion has been replaced by politics. And in every sense of the word, because people, they're concentrating it all day. They are around each other. They're like a sect. And the fervor which they believe that immigrants are bad, college students are not necessarily, colleges aren't that fair in the way they teach. They're all left-wing. So you get the point there. But it seems like that's the focus rather than Catholics versus WASP versus Jews. That theme has been out the door for the last 3 years for sure. I haven't heard any of that kind of crap. Those are things that I heard about in the 60s. So, Dave, your input.
Okay. Probably we're not the two best people to discuss religion in America.
No.
considering you're an atheist and I'm a Star Warsian. And I'll explain that, if anybody wants it. I believe in a force, but no guy with a white beard and no kind of thing like that. But anyway, yeah, of course. History. Always good to start there. So America is founded by pretty much a single group, correct? You'd have James Town, but we say the Puritans in New England, and of course they were escaping religion. I always find this interesting, a religious persecution, not escaping religion, that as soon as they did not set their foot on the rock, which they didn't, but as soon as they got there, one of the first things they do is say, yep, anybody can have freedom of religion as long as they have ours. So just like America was founded, on slavery, it was also founded on non-religious freedom principles. And later, we get these documents, we get the First Amendment about separation of church and state and what church can be and all this. But still, there's always been this undercurrent of religion in American politics. I mean, it's amazing. If you were to go out today and ask people, is America a Christian country? How many would say yes? So they'd be completely wrong, of course, but they would say yes. We have it in our Pledge of Allegiance, and that's interesting. We talk about that later. It was not always there. We have it on, money. So God makes these appearances, and it was a very integral part of America. Catholics were persecuted, Jews were persecuted. Roger Williams had to flee from early Puritan England to set up a much freer religious state in Rhode Island. So it's there. So what happened then? Why? And Brian, I agree 100% with you. Well, I think there are a few things. 1960 election was huge in the fact that John F. Kennedy, an Irish Catholic, won. And I was too young. I was 8. So all this comes from history. I mean, I vaguely recall. I certainly, but I don't really recall 1960 that well in terms of politics. But reading later about it is that was a pretty huge upset. America suddenly said, basically, we'll take a Catholic president. And then we get to the 60s themselves, and we begin to questioning. Young people begin to question. They look at the hypocrisy out there. People go to church. Well, it was the old thing. People go to church on Sunday so they can live the 6 other days of the week the way that they want to. But they'll be religious on Sunday. We begin to get this is more creeping secularism in. Secular just meaning worldly. And then we begin to get through young people's movements in the 60s, we begin to look at some other religions, right? Some things that weren't there. The New Ageism, the idea of Mother Earth Gaia. And now we've got immigrants coming in who certainly are not any basis of Christian. We don't even have the Catholic Protestant kind of thing now. We have, people who follow Muhammad, people Zen, and the list goes on.
Even black Baptists and white Baptists are on the different ends, yet they're the same religion.
Yeah. So, but that's not the purpose. We're looking at what politics happens, and back when it was religious, I think people did group themselves in religion, right?
Right.
Because not too much. If you were Catholic, you didn't go to many Jewish services.
Right.
If you were Protestant, you would go. You'd hope to go maybe a couple bar mitzvahs. So you really didn't know much about them, and you heard these myths, right? I've talked to people, you probably know them, or not the people I know, but where young women or men, Jewish men, women would go off to college, and a couple of people come up and said, "Where are your horns?" I mean, they would ask them, because it was kind of believed that Jewish people, had horns from the devil, because of course they, allegedly, were involved in the killing of Christ, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But as the world became, or as America, not the world necessarily, and it's probably true in the world too, as America becomes more secular, right, we begin to see this phenomena that we're now experiencing today. And you described it probably succinctly. It was conservatism versus liberalism. Now, once upon a time in my lifetime, there were liberal Republicans. Nelson Rockefeller. Okay, John Lindsay from New
Correct.
York. Certainly Mitt Romney's father, George Romney.
Lowell Weicker was a Republican who was liberal at one time.
Who? I'm sorry?
Lowell Weicker, but then he became independent.
No, but now find me one.
You can't.
You can't. So what happened? Now, at the same time, there were very conservative Democrats, the majority of which were positioned in the South, called Dixiecrats. And that's where you get this, the wonderful memes today. Well, Lincoln was a Republican and the Democrats had slaves. And yeah, that's like saying, I don't know, 1,500,000 years ago, X and Y. It's history. It's changed around. But at one point, you did have a spectrum of political beliefs on both parties. And as that began to narrow, I think if I were to put a moment on it, it's hard to do that, but if I were to put a moment on it or a time period, it would have been 1968, that election, with Richard Nixon. And what Richard Nixon was able to do, very similar to what Trump is trying to do today, except Donald Trump still thinks he's Richard Nixon, which he's not. Richard Nixon, as bad as he was on his worst day, was 100 times better politician than Donald Trump. But Nixon was able to take those Dixiecrats and move them into the Republican bloc because of race, right, in the South. Now, if you remove the conservative element from the Democrats, you remove the liberal element from the Republicans, you end up with what we have today, which is, I choose not to, but I understand why one would. Pretty much if you say Republican, they see conservatism, all the things that are associated with a conservative.
Right.
If you say Democrat, they say liberal. Now, both sides look at that with sheer horror. I'm always amazed. I'm an uber liberal. I used to tell people laughingly to shock them, especially if I knew they were conservative. I'd say I'd vote for Bernie Sanders, but he's so damn conservative. In fact, I'd vote for Fidel Castro, but he's too conservative. No, just to poke. But it is true. I mean, if I'm on the extreme thinking left. I've always been there. And I kind of need to qualify that. When I say thinking left, I understand that I think left, but sometimes you have to act in the middle.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to get to.
And there is and I guess, Brian, what I want to leave with in this, and then you can jump in. Right now, pretty much if you are a liberal, you're identified as a Democrat. And the conservatives who identify as Republicans don't like you. Now, I'm certainly not going to stick up for the Democrats, but I think it's a much broader based coalition. So there's more chances of that. And I like that. I like the broader based coalition. And I don't think they're quite as vehement. And I've been pointing that out all along, as recently as today, to people. I'm not opposed to Republicans. I disagree with them. I'm not opposed to conservatives. I disagree with them. I am opposed to Donald Trump and any person who is a Trump supporter. And the way I view it is, if you support Donald Trump, you are you're hiding if you say I am a Republican, because true Republicans would not follow Donald Trump. You are hiding if you say you're a conservative, because true conservatives would not follow Donald Trump. We won't. Now we'll get back to religion.
Well, can I just?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Put the brakes on, because you said
you
something interesting that I do want to stop you there.
Right.
You mentioned that, I guess, the way Republicans are looked at, if you take out the liberal Republicans, they kind of seem like one big group, and then many people see the Democrats now as one big group. But Ronnie was, and I know then you went into it later saying in reality it's more of a diverse party. And Ronnie had asked me the question after we had a conversation about how the Republicans obstructed Obama for 8 years. Why can't the Democrats obstruct in the same way that the Republicans obstructed? And that's exactly the reason that they can't. Because the minute they move to the right, they start losing really conservative Democrats or Southern Democrats. And it's a very difficult position to be placed in, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I like the idea of a coalition. But let's look at that. You're in danger whenever you stereotype, right? But let's look at that. Would a Jewish person be Republican? The answer is possibly, but what else would they be?
Well, 85% of Jews are liberal. But yes, you could find a Jewish conservative. That's easy. Look at Stephen Miller.
But they're either wealthy and they're protecting the interests of themselves and those like them, or they're, as Stephen Miller is, I guess he never went to ethics or philosophy classes at Duke. He's a graduate of Duke. So he's just a hate-filled human being. So you do that, but basically now,
or self-hating.
He's a part, right? So we say no religion, but basically, if you think of a Jewish person, you're thinking usually relatively liberal, right?
85% of Jews are very liberal,
and you're going to find them where then? In the Democratic Party, not because they're Democrats necessarily,
or dead in Mississippi during the 1960s.
Of course, and that's something that you could historically.
People forget that.
People far smarter than I have addressed that. Okay, the coalition, and I'm going to go on record here as saying I see some of those coalitions coming back, but we'll get to that later. All right. So now let me throw out another name: evangelical. Are they Republican or Democrat?
Great question, because black evangelicals are Democrats. White are conservative Republicans.
There you are. Okay. So that kind of breaks down your religion again, right? But it does in a way. It supports this idea. Now, there are people, and I happen to be one of them, who subscribe to the fact that it is very difficult to hate a race if you're next to them. Because all you need is a couple exceptions, right? If you say all black people are bad, and you find 3 or 4 aren't, or 20 or 30 or 40, all of a sudden you have to rethink your position. But if you're isolated in Idaho or Montana, and you're watching Fox News, and all you see are these, whatever they choose to
or movies.
Well, movies for a lot of time too. Although I would suggest the problem is that and that would be interesting to know this. I mean, you have statistics, but like Spike Lee's new movie, I recommend everybody watches it, The Five Bloods. That, I think, the brilliance of Spike Lee, and that's not, I don't use that term often, but the brilliance of Spike Lee is, he speaks directly of race. He speaks directly as a black man, but he has this ability, if you're really open to it and look at it, that he's talking about all Vietnam veterans. You know what I mean? It really was. I mean, so yeah, he gets pigeonholed as this or that, the other. Is it now? Suburban women, and they're going to decide this election, boys and girls. They're probably, if a voter group does it, if one block does it, it's those. Um, they were moving Republican. Why? Because of suburban values, because of the idea, soccer moms. But that's not even the case right now. The suburbs are far more diverse than they were, and Mr. Trump is, thinking he's going to win the suburbs by attacking one. It's not true. Um, every suburb that I know of is far more diverse than any suburb in the 60s. That's where we started this discussion, So I think what happened is, as you said so astutely, and we talk a little bit more about the reasons, but number one, why not religion? We're a more secular society. Number two, people are always going to be somewhat tribal. I don't care. I consider myself, I don't mean a political independent, but I kind of consider myself an independent person, independent thinker, a maverick. I have, as you know, Brian, I've had a long history documented with problems with authority in terms of false authority. Certainly, if it's moral and just, I have no problem with that. But so people now, I think the scariest part is, think about this, ladies and gentlemen. People on the right are getting their moral justification for what they do or what they don't do from Donald Trump. Now, if you're a Christian, or I'm sure you've heard this, you're supposed to ask yourself, what would Jesus do? Well, I'm going to use Trump for a moment. I think he is a pretty good barometer. I'm going to say, what would that be? What would Trump do? WWTD, right? Instead of WWJD. Figure out what Trump would do and do the opposite. And you're probably doing the right thing, the moral thing, the best thing. Then the second group is people like Mr. Falwell and company. Let's see, Mr. Falwell, I believe, I had to laugh.
Which one?
Oh, Junior, with his pants down. I mean, how fucking stupid can you be? Did he really think that was okay? Does he really? I mean, what the hell is up with that? I mean, yeah. Okay. Oh, I have no problem with that. But what he said was, and this may be true, that this is his wife's friend, the young lady there. She was pregnant and her pants didn't fit. And so, to kind of make a joke or make her feel comfortable, he unbuttoned his own pants. Okay. I suppose that happens. Look how close his hand is to her breast. You could say, well, that's innocent. Okay, fine. The thing that caught a lot of people interested is, what's in that goddamn glass? Of course he's on. So let's see. Do I want Trump giving me moral authority? Not really. Do I want Mr. Falwell? Lord help us with Pat Robertson and the rest of the crazies. But this now supports your thing that we moved away from. Even religion is now political, correct? So religion itself, the argument is, there's a big argument right now that if churches are going to indeed endorse and support candidates outwardly, that maybe they shouldn't be tax exempt. They're a different organization. So I think churches are looked at differently than they were. I think the idea of this political party or the idea of conservative liberal has replaced that in your thinking. So what do we do about it? Well, we do shows like Divide and We Stand. Look, I'd love to sit here and sing Kumbaya. I try to consider myself a man of peace. I do believe in love. I do believe in understanding, but this is where it ends. I'm going to make the dangerous comparison of Hitler and Trump, knowing full well that Donald Trump is not Adolf Hitler, but they are both fascists. And if Trump were smart enough to have read Mein Kampf, he's following Hitler's playbook. He might not even be aware of it, but he is. Okay. So, what does that mean? Well, how do you handle evil? Do you do what? Now Jesus said, which is interesting. And again, let's suppose for a moment for Christians that Jesus is a real, well, he's not really a real person because he's the Son of God. But, one of the famous things is, if someone smite thee on the cheek, turn the other cheek. But he was talking about one person, right?
Right.
The president is just one person, but he affects everybody in the country. So I don't think loving him is going to change him. I think he's incapable. I think he confuses love and lust. I don't think there's any question about that. He confuses loyalty and love. If you're loyal to him, you love him, whatever. So when people say, oh, you're so filled with hate to me about Donald Trump, which I hear numerous times a day, I say, yeah, I wear it proudly. We're in a war. It is a war of words, not weapons, thank goodness. It is a war of us versus them, like all wars. And on one side, there are not conservatives, ladies and gentlemen, although they may pretend to be. There are people who will follow Donald Trump. Trump has his own religion. It's Trumpism. Trump has his own political philosophy. It is Trumpism. So, yes, he has some elements. He has the worst elements of conservatism, but he's not a conservative. And therefore, I have no problem dissing him, dissing his people, and using the word hate. I mean, I played around for a while, Brian, with words. Somehow I didn't want to use hate. I said I abhor, I detest, I deplore, da. And finally I said, no, I hate him. I do. How can you not?
Right. I mean, I said something terrible at the dinner table today. I was trying to figure out what's happening with Louis Gohmert, and I said, I hope he goes hard. And I was reading something, and my mother-in-law said, "Oh my God, do you realize what you just said?" I said, "Yeah, I would. I mean, he wouldn't care if I died or you died. He set an example."
And I think the problem is, I keep asking myself, where do the Republicans get these fucking yahoos? Now, you say, wait a minute, Dave, you were talking before. They're not. Yes, they run under the Republican banner. Now, I think that the Republican Party is, without even knowing it, is on a direct suicide mission. Mm-hmm. They're staying with Trump. Trump is going to get crushed in the election.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Sandy just asked about Gohmert. There is a little bit of news. It came out that he had chills last week and was coughing, and that he feels better now. Now, last week, they said he was asymptomatic. So who knows what's really going on with Gohmert? I only hope the worst.
Well,
isn't that terrible to say? I just hate the fucker.
I'm not going to judge you. I wouldn't say it. But I certainly understand the feeling, and you certainly have the right to say it.
Why do we have to? It's like waiting till somebody dies. You can't say something bad about him. He's dead. It's just not right. This person's a son of a bitch. I mean, if somebody beats a dog, I can't just say, I wouldn't wish him. No, I do. He doesn't deserve to live.
That's okay. I mean, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-hmm. I know it's not polite.
I think there is if you wish Ronnie, your wife, dead.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah, well, look, there's very few people I wish dead, but Gohmert or Devin Nunes, I'd have no problem. Trump, I'd have no problem if he had a heart attack. I don't want somebody to knock him off. I'm not into that kind of thing.
Stop you for a minute there. That's interesting. Let's explore that.
Sure.
Okay. You're okay if he dies, but you don't want someone to kill him?
Right.
So are you more interested in the way he dies?
I would like him
being dead.
I want him to do himself in.
Oh, so your hope is for suicide?
Well, not suicide. I just hope it's just desserts. Where he decided not to wear the mask. He was infected. And he's paying the price. It's the irony. If the guy who wanted gold and the gold pot fell on his head and killed him. That's
that does happen.
A great storyline.
That does happen in literature. It doesn't often happen.
No, it doesn't. And the bad guy wins a lot in the world. Yes.
So, I do think people feel free to disagree with me. I do think for certain people there are fates worse than death, and I think for Donald Trump, being humiliated, being humble, becoming a non, hopefully New York coming after him.
Going to prison would be really much better.
That's okay. But first things first, we need to remove him from office. Now, Right now, I'm more comfortable with this uncivil war being fought with words, not weapons. I'm not one that sees us going with weapons. I don't see that happening. I didn't see Trump winning, so who the hell am I?
But I agree with you. You don't see it going the route of an awful civil war as we had during the 1860s. However, we do know that if anybody's going to use the weapons, we know who's going to use them, and that's the right wing. It could be a one-sided thing.
Brian, we go through this weekly, and I go through it with my friends. Okay, get every militia person in America with all their weapons together.
I know where you're going with this.
Let's see them beat one battalion.
Right. If that battalion is going to do what you say they should do.
Well, if they're ordered to, they're going to.
Well, again, he's still the commander-in-chief, and he does. But see, Dave, let's rewind. We go through this argument all the time. Yes, right. The military seems to be against Trump for the most part, or they see him as a problem for the military. But again, Trump understands this. Bill Barr understands this. Stephen Miller understands this. And you can bet at some level.
What do they understand?
They understand that the way to get people to do what you want them to do is to put your loyal people there for you and to get rid of the generals in any way that you can.
How many loyal people does Trump have who are going to go out with that battalion and carry out the orders?
Yeah, there's one. General Michael Flynn would do it.
Is Michael Flynn a general anymore?
That's a good question.
Is he?
No,
he's not.
I don't know. Do they still address him as General Flynn?
Oh, no, I'm talking about somebody in uniform. Okay. Certainly, we can play that argument all night. I can give you 5 names for everything.
But there are the Oliver Norths out there who would do it.
Oliver North,
and he's not the sole Oliver North. We could have 100 Oliver Norths there, and not everybody's a liberal in the armed forces.
All that. But here's the thing. Donald Trump put the hand on the Bible, right? And said, I will, uphold the Constitution of the United States, etc. Lied, we know it. We have to put our faith somewhere, maybe sometimes. And it's been my experience in Washington, D.C., that more military people put their faith in the Constitution. They talk about the commander-in-chief, right? And certainly that's there. But if they believe that the commander-in-chief is serving his own purposes or going against the Constitution or going against the Bill of Rights, I think the leaders in the field, the officers, will say, let's not do this. And what are the men going to do? Act on their own? No. They'll follow the leaders in the field before they will follow Donald Trump. That's right. I mean,
I really hope so.
Now, are there racists in the military? Of course. But there's also black and orange and gay and all kinds. Well, it's not orange. There's only Donald Trump who's orange. But this idea of, and the military, again, the most eye-opening thing is that Donald Trump could become president. Since the 10 years I've been in D.C., my eyes have really been open to the intelligence of the military. And I don't mean the secret intelligence. I'm talking about how intelligent, how thoughtful, how concerned officers are. It's nothing, having never served in the military, having, Vietnam as my kind of military role model, I'm surprised. I have the utmost faith in the military not acting against the American people. Now, if Trump imports, like the British did, brings Hessians over, well, then we'll see. The American troops are not going to turn on American people. That's American troops. I'm not talking about National Guard. I'm not talking about, the Sturgis vigilante group or the Dividing Creek Ku Klux Klan. I'm talking about American military forces will not turn on the American people. Yes.
Between now and whenever, especially if he has, issues with the election, he will do everything he can.
Here's the question. The question becomes this, Brian, and we've never seen the likes of Trump. But I also know this about DC. DC is about power. Who has it? Who can wield it? The day it appears that Donald Trump is no longer president, 98% of his power will be gone over people. So will he try it? Yes. Will he be able to? People, yeah, we talk about the stupidity in this of American people and this and that and the other. They're going to realize that this was a real election, if it is. I mean, if it is, and they're going to say, no, Mr. Trump, be gracious, be whatever, just get the hell out. And the Republican Party are not beholden to Donald Trump. They're beholden to Donald Trump as president. And you heard, Mitch McConnell actually, I wasn't surprised because he's a hypocritical oaf, not an oaf in terms of intelligence, but certainly in terms of hypocrisy. And he released all the congressmen and senators. If you think it's better to distance yourself from Trump and win, do it.
Well, that's fine. Let's just suppose that McConnell all of a sudden went against Trump. He's still not in our camp, and he's dangerous in his own way.
Brian, I'm not saying that, okay? And I understand what you're saying. Now you're sounding like those people on the extreme left that you always come after. You don't get everything in a day. Look, priority number one, as far as I'm concerned, get rid of Donald Trump. I think in doing that, if I'm reading the electorate right, I think the Democrats will assume control of the Senate at the same time. It will not necessarily be a landslide, but they will assume control. Then you turn your ideas to governing the country, of course. But secondly, you still have the Supreme Court and the judiciary to deal with. Mm-hmm. But I'd much prefer to be them at this point because they're there. And I honestly believe this. People come back and tell me in 40 years I might not be here. I'm going to say that a lot of these Trump appointees will not be judges because they'll be disbarred.
Let's hope. Dave, before we go into
we got any questions?
Kamala Harris, I just want to throw this quick graphic up. It just,
I
think it's just interesting to look at it. We can take a couple of minutes. That's it. So basically, if you look at this, ladies and gentlemen, Dave, I hope you can see it. How Republicans and Democrats view each other. And this is, 2019, so it's fairly recent. So 64% of Republicans say that Democrats are closed-minded. Let's talk about the Republicans first in red. Republicans say 36% of Democrats are unintelligent, immoral 55%. So already they think they're immoral and they're unpatriotic and lazy. Okay? They want handouts. And this is just I for want of any other expression, it's just an imprint in their head what they think about what a Democrat is, and it's just clumping everybody together, just like we said earlier in the show.
Are you upset about that? Are you shocked by it? What do you
no,
think?
It's I think I look at it this way. I always talk about determinism and that type of thinking, that Archie Bunker type. Like the word bunker, you think of Archie Bunker, just the name personifies the bunker that he encloses himself. But that shows you that takes years to get that place to that place. It takes 30 or 40 years, a couple of generations to get to the point where you say Democrats are unpatriotic. This has been building up. And what I mean by that is this also means it's going to be hard to get rid of.
Well, yeah, except you have to then look at other factors. Again, not generalizing, but I would say in general, Republicans taken as a whole are older than Democrats in age. So who's going to die first? There'll be more Republicans dying than Democrats. Another thing about that is actually, and this is kind of true, I think, scientifically, as the older you get, most people, the more conservative you get. I know that with some of my friends who were very radical and are more conservative now. I think also you have to look at, they say that young people today. I think young people today are more genuine about their concerns about the environment, about gun safety, than about war and peace than we were in the 60s. I really do believe that. talked to a lot of them. I lived the '60s, so again, it won't be tomorrow, but you know what tomorrow's job is to beat Donald Trump, and then we go on the next day. I would sincerely hope tonight it won't happen, but I would sincerely hope that everyone would look at, we'll talk about it later, Biden's vice presidential appointment, and say, you know who it matters to? It matters to Joe Biden. Doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to you. I'm backing Joe Biden now because of all the women he looked at. I would have accepted any of them. And I don't think one was best. I think he made the best pick for him. I don't think he would make a pick that wasn't the best for him. And so there we are. Those statistics, I don't know. I think the problem becomes, for people that want to be nice and, have everybody, okay, I'll use my wife for an example. Judy is probably one of the most wonderful people on the planet, and loves everybody except Donald Trump. But which is kind of funny in and of itself. But she's the thing that keeps her from saying things is she's non-confrontational. It's kind of a good thing when you're married to me,
right?
If we both confrontate, we're confrontational.
She's not confrontational, and you are. So what do you?
I think a lot of times what opposites attract. I mean, today I had a war with a number of people, and she just said, "Would you just stop it?" And I said, "No, I won't," because it's very important to me that they understand. This might be my ego, but I have no respect for them. I don't care about what they think. They're on that red line, and they're not conservatives, and they're not Republicans. They are Donald Trumpers until Trump is gone. Then I'll look at them and see what they think then. Okay? But for now, no. It's fine to hate evil. It's fine to hate evil. In fact, it's the only logical reaction that I can think of. And if you don't think, I'm not, anyone out there, if you don't think Donald Trump is evil, or if you don't think he's capable of evil beyond even what we can imagine, then I'm afraid, my friend, that you are. Okay, Rudy, Joe is ripe for retirement home, not the Oval Office. Rudy, I want you to put up someone right now, if you would for me, please, who you think would make a better president on the Democratic side than Joe Biden. I'm not saying he's the best. I'm just saying. So we know what we're talking about. Very easy. And Rudy, I'm not putting you down. I'm not saying anything. What I'm saying is this. It's very easy to attack. I'm one who attacks all the time. Okay? But you should always have an alternative. Now, we're not going to play the game of this Joe. I mean, just give me a name. Give me a name. Who would make a better president?
And by the way, Infinity and Zero did follow up Rudel's comments. I don't think that's fair. I hope he'll be in that office come January, don't you? So you can see how it goes both ways. But I think Rudel's coming about it from.
I don't get that comment because I didn't get the comments.
Right, I didn't really do them in order here because Rudel says that he's ripe for the retirement home, not the Oval Office. And then Infinity says, I don't think that's fair. I hope that he'll be in that Oval Office come January.
Well, I think it's very simple. For me, it's very simple. I can't think of a person right now who is in politics that I think, that I wouldn't want in the Oval Office rather than Donald Trump. So for me.
And Infinity's, I think, expressing what you're expressing.
Well, what I'm saying, I think there is a difference, okay? There's always a difference, ladies and gentlemen, always a difference. It might be minuscule. It might be that. And if anyone says to me, this is just me personally, that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are the same, I will look at them and say, my good friend, you are wrong. I can't convince you, but you are wrong. And there's one word. It has 6 letters. Joe Biden has empathy. Donald Trump has none.
Well, we've talked about this on the earlier shows, Dave, and just like that graphic I showed you about the stereotypes that Republicans have about Democrats and vice versa, and I said that you have years of determinism built up. Basically, you grow up in families that have an Archie Bunker attitude. So we've seen this coming from the far left, and Rudel has his opinion, and that's fine because he's very nice to come on our program and make
I'm not,
comments.
I mean, I would never go to anyone that comes
But
up.
the question I have is not so much as comment, but again, where does this come from? I've suggested that many people on the left grew up in conservative families. They broke away, but they still harbor this cynicism about the Democratic Party. Now, that's not saying Rudel is from that.
Well, see, and you and I part a little company there too. I think anybody's a fool who doesn't have cynicism about the American government. The American government is broken. Okay. So now it's who can best fix it. How do you get them there? How do you fix it? All that. So temporarily, I think a small incremental step is better. Donald Trump, if we put years in terms of steps, we moved back 4 years, 4 huge steps, and they were big steps. He might have tiny little hands, but apparently can walk backwards pretty good. From where we were when Barack Obama was president. Okay. I think with Joe Biden, now we've got to remove the pandemic. What if the pandemic were not here? Joe Biden could get us back on the right track. Now, how many steps will we gain back? I don't know. That's remains to be seen. I think one of the things that people look at, government was never designed to care about people. That's what they teach in school. There's some truth to that, I suppose, in that school. But see, that's one of my pet areas. If you're going to say to me, school was designed to create workers, that's absolutely correct. The American school system was designed to create workers. That's why we have bells. That's factory workers, et cetera, et cetera. It was a false sense of patriotism. Pray to God, pledge of allegiance, go do your duty, blah 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 blah. But that all comes down to individual teachers. No, there have been teachers who've always taught something beyond that. I think again it gets to this acceptance of authority figures. I think Brian, you kind of hinted at that, but I take it more direct. Conservatives in general are more apt to follow a leader than liberals are.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's fine if your leader's good, but what if your leader is Donald Trump? And see, I still can't get it through to my, whatever they are, the Trumpites, that do they really think I'm going to waste my time attacking and spending as much time as I had if their nominee had been John Kasich, or if their nominee had been, maybe Ted Cruz if he got into some, if he wanted his theocracy. But let me just have some philosophical grips. Donald Trump, the essence of Donald Trump, whether you see it or not, is he is a bad person who became a bad businessman, who became a bad candidate, who became a bad president, who will go down in history as the worst president in American history. Call me 30 years from now and tell me I'm wrong. But I believe all of that to be true. Right. Capitalism by design is to eliminate the competition. Hard to argue when you saw the new reports today of how much money billionaires have made. Hard, Brian. I don't know much about the stock market, but again, I'm going to use my, what would Donald Trump do? He seems to put a lot of faith in it. So I mean, a lot of stock in it. Well, there's a pun, huh? Stock in the stock market. But no, the stock market is for rich people and people have money. Okay. The biggest indication right now that capitalism isn't working, at least as Donald Trump and the trickle down is working. Too many people are out of work. Too many people are underpaid. We see now the value. I've used this term a lot. I don't really give a shit what Tom Brady does, right? I care more about what the health of Africa, not the continent, but Africa is. Every Thursday morning when Judy and I go to the grocery store, Africa is the last person we see. She checks us out and we bag. I know about her family. I know about this kind of thing. And Africa certainly doesn't make what Tom Brady does. So yeah, capitalism. The other problem I would have there with anybody, again, what do you put in its place? Okay. I mean, it's one thing to say something is bad. That's a problem I have with anarchists. Yeah. Okay. So what do you put in its place? right?
Well, I think this next step you answered. I mean, next comment you answered this a few weeks ago. You know, the people who, Christ, why am I getting an echo? But, you know, some people want a revolution. Say, okay, the incremental steps aren't going to work, but you know, you better be prepared to win that thing because there are losers too in a revolution.
I think the thing is, I like. I mean, Rudy, you're absolutely right. Okay, incremental steps won't do anymore. We need a green revolution happening in the next 20 years.
And that's true. We will need that.
No, Rudy.
We need a green revolution.
On that is absolutely insane. Now, the question becomes, and I would turn it around to you, who gives it, we're just talking about the election, right? Who gives you a better shot of getting there? Biden or Donald Trump? Donald Trump is going to take you away from it. Biden is not going to get you there. Maybe Biden will get you closer, and that person who will get you there is out there somewhere in a name we don't even know.
Right. Now, Rudel's going to say that that's not enough. You need it right now. You need a revolution. Bang.
I got that, Rudel. And I'm not picking on you. I think you speak for so many people. So you're kind of representing that voice tonight. You were kind enough to come on the show. Again, I would say, man, I don't know. Do you take actual violence to get the environment that we need? I don't know. You know what I'm just saying? I mean, I would hope that people arrive at it. Now, the studies that I see, and I hate studies because, you know, I think it can be proven whatever. But I would say people are far more environmentally conscious today than they've been in my lifetime. The problem is that too many who aren't are elected to office right now.
And population, too.
Yeah. But, you know, I think, you know, look, you know, again, it's just my opinion. But if we are past the point of no return, I still think we need to get rid of Donald Trump. Right.
The next comment, actually, Human Love Solidarity. I actually read last week, HLS, that 10% of the wealthiest people own 92% of Wall Street. So, I mean, here we're comparing scars here, but that just goes to show you what Dave's talking about.
I mean, you know,
it's hard for me to jump up and down that the stock market keeps going up.
I mean,
because,
you know, again, I joke about it, but I think I'm the closest person who'll ever be on this show to a Jeff Bezos building. You know, it's 1, 2, 3 from me, his first building here in Amazon headquarters 2, or the East Coast headquarters. And of course, I question. I think his wife, Mackenzie, or ex-wife, I should say, I think she's doing kind of interesting. She's giving away money, a lot of money, and I think she's doing it because she's a good person. I don't know her. I know a couple of people who say that she is, and I believe them to be true. And I think she might probably doing it to shame her husband a little bit, right? Why not? So certainly now, not the other side. We're not playing Donald Trump's other side, both sides, you know, kind of thing. But I mean, Jeff Bezos had an idea. Everything I've read, it was his idea. Mark Zuckerberg, it was not his idea. He stole it from 2 friends. But we're talking about Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos, in a way, is the epitome of the myth of the American dream. He started selling books out of his garage. That part's true. Well, you know what? You know what? Now what's interesting about that is, Rudel, if we have Donald Trump as president, you'll get your wish. You get your wish. So we'll be able, I mean, I kind of hope, no offense, Rudel, but I kind of hope we don't get to that point. I think, and again, I'm old. I don't think I'm naive, but I just think this. I want to frame it right. Nothing you can do, anyone to change me on this. I think it's a lot easier to move forward when you're moving forward. That's momentum. Than it is to move forward when you're moving backward.
Right.
That's a physical force. It's a law. It's the same as gravity. You can't fall up, right? You fall down. And so therefore, hearing no other option, viable option to get Donald Trump out of office, I'm going to go with that. then I say, Rudel, and again, I'm using you as a spokesperson, not you as the person. I plan to join you out there if Biden isn't moving quick enough. I think, again, where are the environmentalists? Are they in the Republican conservative Donald Trump camp, or are they more in the Democratic Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren camp? I think they're more there. There'll be pressures. Look, you see how pressure works in politics. There was a lot of pressure and rightfully so, not bad pressure. It's time to make a black woman powerful. The only better choice that Joe Biden, I will say this, the only better choice, I agree, Kamala Harris isn't someone people are excited about. See, but what again, Darlene, what I'm going to ask, and again, not picking on mistake, two things. Who would you be excited about? Give me a name, right? And then the second thing would be, are you excited about Donald Trump? See, I think people on the left, the right, the center, me, all of us, we want it all. You don't get it all in life. You don't. This is one of those times when you don't have to compromise your morals, right? Because Donald Trump has none. But you do maybe have to compromise your interests. There are people lobbied very hard for Stacey Abrams, who lobbied very hard I'm sure there are people that, I know there are people who lobbied very hard for Elizabeth Warren, Governor, and Joe Biden sat down and he said, okay, for whatever his reasons, he doesn't have to explain them to me. He said, this is my person. I'm going to run with this person. And for me, this person doesn't make me not vote for Joe Biden, nor does it make me vote for Donald Trump. So I'm satisfied. Now, are you satisfied? That's something you have to go inside yourself and answer. But I do think you need to ask yourself, can I live with Donald Trump being president of America for 4 more years?
Right.
But more importantly, can others live with Donald Trump being president for 4 more years? Why don't we go down there? You know what? It's something we might do, Brian. I mean, I wish we could. I wish we could. I mean, they don't know. I mean, this is. But maybe we could ask the kids in the cages that Donald Trump authorized to put in there whether they'd rather have Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
Right.
It's a possibility.
Right. By the way, if any of you are interested, Dave and I did approach this topic in really, I guess, during 2 videos. You'll see one we had a debate with Antonio Reed, and another one we had Antonio Reed. And so we've been through the debate again, between the far left and us.
Please understand.
And we made no apologies. We were the same.
No, I think too. I think the purpose of the far left, it does serve a purpose. I was once part of it. You modify your stand maybe a little bit later, get me more practical. I don't think I got more conservative. I just got more practical. I think the purpose of the far left is to make sure that the mid-left, the centrist left, does not go to the right, right? Mm-hmm. They're almost like a conscience, In a way, I think the liberal left is a conscience. And look at what they prod us on. They prod us on police brutality, correct? They prod us on the environment. They prod us on a lot of things. So I don't like when Democrats, or whatever, we use these words interchangeably tonight. Let's say liberals, I don't like when they attack the left necessarily. I don't think that's because they serve a purpose too.
Right. Now this comment actually deals more with me than anybody else because Dave knows, anybody who watches this and watched me on the reality report, I was sensing, and Dave knew this all along because I was privately talking with Dave and even with Paul about it, is that I noticed that because we had a lot of Guy McPherson subscribers, they tended to be far left. And here I am on the left, thinking I'm on the left, and I'm being looked at as though I'm a conservative, which is why you see me on Divided We Stand instead of the reality report, because my whole mantra, my whole philosophy is not within that target market over there. And this is why you're not going to see me there. You're going to see me here because this is where I feel more comfortable.
And I think, for me, I have a little different outlook. I have sympathies, tremendous sympathies for the radical left, because that's where I was. But I think you can't, and this, of course, is almost anathema to say, you can't win. The radical left does not have enough people to win an election.
And you're not just negotiating with the Democrats. I mean, I don't know why people can understand that.
Well, the idea of
the other guy has the shotgun.
Well, there's all that too. But just the idea of it, look, something I wrong crowd tonight, but I have to say this. It just one of the things that fascinates me about Trump supporters, and I put them in a different category. Okay, they defy logic. All right, now this is a logical thing that I think. Vladimir Putin wants as much power as he can grab, and as much money as he can grab, and he has to be. Hey,
see you, Dilly. She had to
take
go.
Care. Take care. Thank you for stopping by. What you find out.
See, that I wouldn't agree with at all.
I'll come back to that in a minute.
Okay.
I want to just finish it. I think the idea, like I say, I just want to finish this comment on the far left. So if you want to win, you have to make coalitions. Love to tell you differently, but that's not the way it is. And I feel comfortable making coalitions along the left all the way up to the center. I do not find myself making any comfort with coalitions on any side of the right, meaning, whether they're real moderate right or what, because they're not. Now, for Ms. Clinton.
Right.
All right. It's tough. I understand people's mistrust, distrust. Certainly the Clintons. The one thing you can say about the Clintons, or one thing you should say, not for Hillary because she lost, but Bill Clinton did what he had to do to win. And it was a different time. I'm not excusing him. I'm just saying, he again, to get elected, he had to move. I don't know if he moved more to the right or more to the centrist or, right center than he did. Crime was an issue. I think to his shame, he did the crime bill. I think with Hillary, there was an arrogance that came across, whether it wasn't there. I was only in her presence once. I covered a rally, and she was very different. But that's one moment in time in a meeting. I was next to her, but talked to her. But in Atlanta, Georgia. So I just think. Again, I'll just say at this point, I believe that Hillary Clinton was not the right candidate to oppose Donald Trump, but that's what happened. So,
but I'm saying, how can you say, well, if you think of anything, if you can say anything good about Clinton, you're not left. But Hillary Clinton did want to get health care for all. You know what I mean? So
what happens?
It's too generalizing. I mean, I'm not going to go into the names of it, but Dave knows. Ronnie's cousin is friends with Hillary Clinton, and we know the person, and she's a very nice person. She's not going to be friends with a demon, and I mean, it's at a human level. I don't think you can say that she's what you think she is.
Well, again. See, unfortunately, let's put it like this. I mean, a lot of people need to feel. The old thing with George W. I could sit down and have a beer with him. Well, hell yeah, I could too.
He had a Scottish Terrier. I could definitely
that doesn't make him a good president or a bad president. It makes him somebody you want to drink beer with.
But you could say that he's a decent guy. He loved his dogs. He liked his children.
Hillary, I think, suffered a lot, perhaps from being hypocritical in the sense, but that's the marriage that she had with Bill. There were a lot of women who said, don't put up with him. A lot of women, and men too, but probably more women, felt that she should not have attacked those who Bill supposedly had affairs with, and did. Not supposedly.
Do you think a lot of it is just that a lot of people don't like strong women? I mean, what is this?
Well, I will say this. I don't feel comfortable commenting on that because I don't know that, but I will say something from my work world that surprised me. And I really had two very different work worlds. I had the work world of old journalism, print, and then education. This did amaze me. The number of women who told me over the years, not in education, they preferred a man to be a boss than a woman. And, if I had been a woman, I would have thought I would have preferred not to have a man, mansplaining to me and thinking I was a second-class citizen and that type of thing. Of course, that's a loaded area like race, gender, and we have that. So, wow. What do you say about Hillary Clinton? I think you say about Hillary Clinton, she was extremely bright. I think she was ambitious.
A good senator.
But even there, see, you get that idea of carpetbagging, and it's just amazing, that there's still ill will in the South that she was a Northerner who came and went to Arkansas, right? Because that's where her husband was, or was going to be, and that's what she did. I think she gave up,
Or is it they just didn't like Bill Clinton? It's just they don't like strong women who are liberals, especially liberals.
Oh, yeah, but you're not talking about that. I thought we were talking about women on the left who don't like Hillary Clinton.
Well, that's true, too. I mean, like I said, my position.
On the right, they're not.
Right, but there's something about the far left when it starts approaching the far right, like with their international policies.
Okay, if you consider it a straight line, right, the extremes would be out this way, right? I mean, they'd be as polar opposites. But a lot of times polar opposites share a lot of the same characteristics. It's just that they're the opposite.
Right. The black evangelicals and the white evangelicals, they're in different parties, but they still are against abortion. And they're conservative in terms of social mores. So it's...
Which of course, again... I'm going to make a charge that I believe is true. I think I can support it. One of the things about conservatives, I think, and especially Trumpites, they're more what I call light switch people. Okay, the light is either on or off. There's no in between, right? But if there is a moment, we don't see it with our human eyes, but there's a moment when the light is more on than off, then more off than on, and then off and on. Correct? I mean, that's just got to be. I mean, things don't happen that way. And the right, the extreme right, wants it off or on. Abortion is bad. Abortion is good. The extreme left, on some of their issues. Now, having said that, I side with this extreme left. I believe that they are right in terms of what they believe. I don't think that they're necessarily always right in their execution. I think, but I am listening to many of them. They want it right now. It doesn't happen that way. So what happens is I'm back to repeating myself, but I think it's worth repeating. I'd rather be moving ahead to move ahead faster and further than I would be moving backwards to try to head in that same direction.
And that's where Dave and I agree completely. I mean, basically what you're saying, Dave, is that you have to be pragmatic because you don't know if you can make that
And I will say
leap.
this too. I've never run. Well, that's not true. I once ran for office. I ran for vice president of my class in ninth grade, and I finished 5th in a field of 3 candidates. No, I'm kidding, but I didn't win, obviously. And I'm kind of glad my life, is that way because it was that way. It meant that I loved politics, but I'm on the outside. So, but I will say this: politics is a dirty business. Okay, it's not a good place to find yourself. You have to compromise yourself all the time. And the trick is somehow to find a way.
Has Trump compromised himself, though? I think he's, obviously somebody who's kind of outside that type of thinking.
Well,
he's the first.
Exactly. And I have no problem doing it. I mean, Trump is not normal as a person. His presidency is not
an outlier.
Normal. His election
and an outright liar.
Normal. All that stuff. All right. But there's always going to be what's the old adage? It's the exception that proves the rule. Certainly he's but normally it's very hard. And ask people. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of people who went into politics, for the best of intentions. And it's hard to do that because you have to make compromises. And look, let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen. In sports, right, there are winners and losers. Would you agree, Brian?
Mainly losers, but yes.
No, there's
one winner in the end, and that's the...
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay.
Everybody else toils, and then one person wins.
Well, but if the Phillies lose tonight, right? They play again tomorrow.
Right.
If a politician loses on election day, they don't play.
Right.
They sit out and try to come back.
Right.
And I think, and the other thing is, and I think there's ways around this. There's too much money involved, but I don't know how you keep it out. And certainly you don't keep it out with the Supreme Court Citizens United ruling, which pretty much says bring it in. And I'm sorry, I'm not a Supreme Court justice, but I'll be damned. There is a difference between using your voice and using your money as your voice. And the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 that they are the same thing, and they are not. But until, I guess, as my bosses always pointed out to me, well, Dave, when you get to be the boss, you can make the decision. But right now, I'm making it. And I said, well, yeah, I guess I'll just have to let you make your asshole decision.
Right.
And let it go with that. And they're right. I mean, same thing, Supreme Court. I mean, it could be revisited. There's another thing that I don't think Americans get a lot of times. A Supreme Court ruling is only a Supreme Court ruling for one period of time, right? It can be revisited. And I think Citizens United, either through some kind of amendment, some kind of ruling, will be revisited because, as people tonight pointed out on our channel, and we know, if you're going to equate money with voice and voice with power, then people with the most money have the largest voice.
Right.
And it's too, if there was an old conservative, he used to work at Bridge before he came there, named Bud Maxwell. And Bud had a point. His point was, if you take the 10 richest people in the world and put them in a room, one is the poorest person in that room, right? I mean, ideally that's the sense, but they could all buy and sell. Right now, there's too much between the wealthy and the middle class and the poor. And when you start making money the end all and be all, whether it's capitalism, unfettered, which should never exist. Unfettered capitalism is bad. Or you're going to make it a voting power, or you're going to make it whatever. If congressmen are going to have their votes purchased, and there's some who do, and I'm not so sure. I mean, really, probably, in all honesty, Brian, in the modern age, there's probably a lot less bribery than there was 50 years ago in terms of government. But the bribery now is in terms of, we'll give you this money if you vote for this kind of thing, not necessarily pocketed. And it's hard. I mean, I wish I had all the answers. I don't.
I think it's a lot harder. I mean, I think the press on the whole is a lot better today than they were 100 years ago.
Oh, that goes without saying in terms of that. But however, what happens is, and I've spoken at length at this, both at the museum and other places, those of us who came of age in the period of 1946 to 1980, we were actually witnessed the anomaly, which was a relatively objective press. It was never that way before that. It's certainly not now.
Right.
Now the question becomes, well, I mean, you can't say that Fox News is objective.
Not at all.
You can't say that MSNBC is objective.
No, but you can just. I still think there is a difference between MSNBC and Fox.
There's a difference, like we said, between Trump and Biden. Okay.
Right. There's outright lies.
Well, right.
And then there's Lawrence O'Donnell.
I'm not.
And Rachel Maddow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference.
Well,
and if the propaganda is correct propaganda, I have no problem. Now, Republicans would say, well, that's what you think.
Everybody says propaganda is a bad thing. If I could use propaganda right now to make everybody in America understand that it is not the time to open schools in the middle of a pandemic, I would use propaganda. So propaganda, again, like everything else, propaganda is like a gun. It's not a bad or good thing. It's got a really bad name, propaganda. No, propaganda can be good if it's used for the right purposes. And so, again,
well, isn't it kind of like advertising? There's good advertising and there's bad advertising. If you're going to show your product and say what are the technical specifications of the product and what it can do for you, rather than just saying buy this because Michael Jordan has his name on it, that's another story.
People look. We're talking about a presidential race, and we'll be talking about it until November, right? And it really always has been a cult of personality to a certain extent, right? And we buy products. I say I don't. I try not to. I try to buy them because I like them rather than the ads. But it's they're effective. Ads are effective, but they wouldn't spend so much damn money on them.
Well, Dave, can I interrupt you a second? There are times, there are certain products, believe it or not, that I really believe in. Like, I'm not all against certain companies, but some companies produce products that actually get better over time. Like, for example, I like flying my drone. Sometimes they do updates where the drone can do more.
Is that what they call what you do now? Flying a drone?
But what videography in the air, okay? But the point is that 1 year later, the drone actually can do more than it did a year ago. So, for example, I can have this pen here, and it has its function, and a year later it's going to have its same function. But when I get a product, just for example, like Ecamm, what I'm using right now, they do updates. Sometimes the product gets better, and those kind of products are the ones that I like to buy. The ones that the company says, look, let's throw them a bone, let's make it even better, even though they've already purchased it. That's the company I want.
Well, I mean, there's so much involved in that. Let's use two places. I would much prefer to eat ice cream, if I ate ice cream a lot, from Ben and Jerry's because of their political stance, right?
Right.
But I try not to eat ice cream. I like ice cream, but ice cream is fattening. So I mean, I don't eat it much. I love Cherry Garcia. It's a reward for me. But I mean, if I had the option, right, I would take it from them, even though it might be a little bit more expensive. But then there's the same thing. I do visit, which people would say a horrible conflict of interest if I'm supposed to be so much a supporter of gay men and women, which I think I am. I will eat at Chick-fil-A. Now, there are people that would say that undoes everything that you've done. Fine, if that's the way that you feel. I have to make, just as Joe Biden has to make, just as everybody who's listening tonight has to make, we have to make some decisions. And sometimes they might be right. Sometimes they might be wrong. Certainly, there are decisions that we make in our personal lives where, your wife, Ronnie, or my wife, Judy, or you say, wait, they're going to say, no, that wasn't the right one. But the idea of it is, and I know this sounds so simplistic, but you have to make decisions and then you have to live with your decisions. Right. And that's another reason why I support Biden over Donald Trump. And it's not only empathy. I think Joe Biden has a conscience. I really do.
Lost, what, a wife, a daughter, and a son? Yeah. It should mean something.
It does.
It's destroyed him.
Donald Trump, and I don't know why people can't see this. This is so I was talking to my son tonight. He's back on his routine. He now takes my granddaughter to school, so he calls on his way back to his apartment. So we get a 6-minute what would that be? Intercontinental gas call. He's in Australia. But anyway, a little bit of time. And he was so frustrated tonight, with humans and this idea of, what's going on. And I said, well, you're living in Australia. They're doing a better job than we are right now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, he was doing tonight, I think he was in one of those moods, we all get there, where he knew he was right? But he just wanted the rest of the people to be right. And I feel that with Trump all the time. I just don't understand. I really don't, Brian. And nobody can explain it to me that successfully yet. Why don't people see him the way that he really is? And there's a multitude of answers, and we're not going to go into that. I don't even want to discuss it. But that is the enigma to me. You can be a conservative, as I said, and still think, and it goes beyond that. They think everything Trump does is good. Or they will say this, well, I don't like the way he tweets all the time, but...
They try to inoculate themselves from criticism.
And now we're round circle to where you started, and then we'll jump into the vice president thing. Tribalism's pretty. If nothing else, Trump has shown a number.
Well, what I do want to say is it takes years to get there.
Well, Donald Trump, I'm more Republican than Donald Trump. I'm more conservative than Donald Trump because Donald Trump is about Trumpism. It's about him. But yet he has all these people, correct, convinced that our Republicans, that he is a Republican, that he is a conservative. Do you know why? Because he ran under the Republican banner. That's tribalism. Okay. That is tribalism in his ultimate. And that's why on their worst days, Democrats will be better than Republicans in that respect, right? Because they're always more diverse. Show me the diversity in the Republican Party, and you can't because it doesn't exist.
And that benefits them, though, you know.
Well, in the short run, of course it benefits.
They can obstruct. It won't turn off anybody in that party. Like you just said, no matter what they do, it's cool.
But that assumes you have enough voters to get your guy elected.
And apparently they have enough votes to get their guy elected. For however they get it, they have enough votes.
This time they did. They got Donald Trump. But again, I'm going to use this term. I despise it. So you say, why do you use it? No, it just fits this. It was perfect storm. Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton was the perfect storm for Donald Trump to win. He would not have beaten Joe Biden head-to-head back then, and he will not beat Joe Biden this time.
We'll see. Dave, can we go on to Kamala?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Kamala Harris.
Don't you listen? You should listen to every word I say.
I heard you, but I know that you go off on a tangent sometimes.
I'm going to say my piece.
And a good tangent. I mean, really.
And it's three. All right, three things about this, and then it's all. Number one, I mentioned it earlier, but I think it doesn't matter what I think of Kamala. I think that it matters what Joe Biden thinks of Kamala. Because Joe Biden fortunes ride on whatever Kamala does or doesn't do, etc., etc., etc. That's number one. Number two, and it's so easy. I told Judy today, and she just laughed at me and said, I wish I'd bet money. My candidate, I make no excuse about it, in the Democratic Party was Elizabeth Warren. 4 years ago, it was Bernie. But I said, and unfortunately, I didn't write it down and get it notarized, or I didn't play it at Vegas. I said at that point, I said, you know what would be the best team to beat Donald Trump? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So I mean, I was supportive in that sense. Thirdly, we're back to this. What we've been talking about tonight. We've been talking about the whole time. Nobody gets everything they wanted. There are people who wanted Stacey Abrams, right?
Right.
There are people that wanted Governor Whitmer. There are people that wanted the governor of New Mexico. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? And now the question is, they didn't get their person. Joe Biden, for whatever reason, maybe known only to Joe Biden, is that he did not. I think it was the smart choice for him. I think it was the choice that made the most sense politically at this point. I think even if he had wanted to, say, take Governor Whitmer to secure Michigan, at this point, African Americans are going to be a huge determiner in this race.
Which is why the Republicans are going to try to suppress the African American vote more than anything.
Well, of course, and they're going to do that anyway. My question is, how can they succeed? And I think we'll leave that for another time to talk about. But at this point, okay, you can make your comments about it. But my comments are this: I woke up this morning feeling confident about three things. One, at this point, Joe Biden and the unknown person, which is unknown this morning, correct? We're going to defeat Donald Trump and Mr. Pence. I felt confident in that. The second thing was, I felt confident that Joe Biden and person X, and I'm going to say Ms. X because at that point he'd pretty much narrowed it down to a female, we're going to govern better than Donald Trump and Mr. Pence. And tonight, I feel maybe even a tad more confident that my feeling that Joe Biden and now Kamala Harris will win. So I believe that. It's not just a belief. I mean, I feel that. I think we're gonna, we'll look at the polling and see. Well, of course, the only thing that counts are the votes on election night. But I'm going to say this: we don't talk about it enough. These are not normal times, ladies and gentlemen. These are not normal times. Donald Trump wants to go back to the 1970s, right? Well, the pandemic has changed every single thing. Every single thing. Brian, you go through it. I mean, if somebody's listening, I think everybody left. If anybody's listening, tell me one single thing that the pandemic hasn't altered. I don't know of a thing. Donald Trump is rigid, right? I mean, he's just not going to change. I think the team of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, supported by that broad-based Democratic coalition, has a much better chance. And I really believe, Brian, that we've not seen the worst yet for this pandemic. We might, at some point, get people wear their damn masks. We might get some kind of hold on this pandemic and get that under control. But every day, the economic damage.
And I've got 3 weeks before I go back, and there's nothing being done.
Worse and worse and worse. So you've got, I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if it were normal times, I'm Biden-Harris. In a pandemic, I'm so Biden-Harris that there's not words enough for me to describe how Biden-Harris I am. And it's not Biden-Harris, it's Biden and whoever he got.
Right.
Because again, I think a vice president selection, and I'm getting tired. I said I would never attack journalists and colleagues, but I'm getting tired of all this speculation and, why not just call Trump out? You're starting to see a little bit, but why the hell can't everybody do the interview like Matt did it? Mr. President, that's not true. Mr. President, that's not true. It doesn't matter to his people, don't believe it, but it matters to the integrity of journalism.
Right.
It matters to the integrity of the person. And I've talked to a few people who've done the White House. I don't know anyone who's currently doing it. They said, well, there's a protocol for Trump. Is not a protocol person. Now, he did catch everybody by surprise. We now know who he is. We know what he is. We should not give him 1 ounce of respect, whether we're a journalist, whether we're a homeless person, whether we're in a war with him, like Jeff Bezos, might be. He doesn't deserve it. And anybody who gives it to him is doing themselves and their group, if they're aligned with one, i.e. journalism, a disservice.
Right.
So how do you feel about Kamala?
Well, from my previous discussion about her on, I guess in May, I basically said that I like her prosecutorial or whatever, prosecutorial abilities, and I think she'll destroy Pence.
Next thing you'll be saying Thailand.
Yeah, I got to watch out. I'm just tired, folks, and I fumble my words.
I'm just picking on Brett. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, please, if we give up anything else, let's not keep putting people down for what they say or how they speak. I mean, in terms of that, we all make mistakes.
No, I lose myself sometimes. But the point is that I think she's a fierce competitor. I think she's the perfect person to go after Pence. I'm sure Pence was an attorney, but I think she's the person. I mean, look, you have to have an attack person, and this vice president is usually that, and she's perfect. For what Biden can't do, she will.
Well, as I said, I think given the set of circumstances being dealt, right? Even Biden was given, certain cards. He had the ability to play them, but it was there. The only better choice for America would have been someone who had never taken the job. And that would be Michelle Obama.
Right. Well, didn't happen, not going to happen. But I'll say this.
But here's what people say that's true. But you know what does happen? You get Kamala Harris, correct? And you get the Obamas. You got the whole team.
I understand.
So anybody who liked Barack Obama as president, let me remind you, Joe Biden was his vice president.
Right. And if anything should happen to Joe, Kamala Harris will be just fine. She'll be tough. And that's what you want in a
Right.
Democrat, a tough Democrat.
And I think
They'll
that's
respect her more.
We'll hear all kinds of things, tonight about the Clinton, Hillary, and all that. How Kamala, I'm sure we'll get how she slept her way to the top. They're looking at the marijuana. She had 1,900 marijuana convictions, I guess, in her time. The problem with that is it's very hard to judge people from what they did in the past. The only person I know who's consistent is Donald Trump.
Right.
He was born bad, he's lived bad, and he'll die bad.
Right. And like the products I said that get better,
Yeah.
in his case, they tend to get worse, which is a very
Correct.
scary thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Well, that's all I really wanted to say about Kamala Harris. I think that would have been my choice. I mean, Susan Rice would have been fine. Anybody would have been fine. But I think
I want to comment on Susan Rice for a moment. I think, okay, there were people who said Kamala Harris would make a better attorney general than a vice president. She's certainly very qualified for both jobs.
absolutely.
Right? Biden took that. Susan Rice certainly looks pretty good as Secretary of State.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
All her experience. Elizabeth Warren, something with finance. Pete Buttigieg. It will shock me if Pete Buttigieg is not in the cabinet.
Right. And just imagine if all those things happen, which is very likely. Can you imagine all these right-wing Republicans? You'd have Kamala Harris as vice president, Susan Rice as Secretary of State. I mean, who knows? Cory Booker somewhere?
Possibly. But right now, Cory should concentrate on his
Or
romance.
Stacey Abrams. I don't know. Whatever you want. But
But see, even there, I mean, I know it's a little left-handed compliment, but see, I think Stacey Abrams' brilliance right now is in going out and doing what she does, fighting for minority registration, voter registration, and against voter suppression. She's got her cause. She's very good at it. Unleash her, give her all the help you can, let her go, and then reward her however she wants to be rewarded. But the vice presidency is not the reward that you give someone, because that is something that you have to believe in.
And by the way, if we do luckily win this, and I mean it, even though we'll win the popular vote, if we're lucky enough to win through all the cheating, they're going to have to take a lot of care of a lot of the changes that Trump made and just redo all that and make,
Well, the other thing is, and I'm going to urge some caution tonight with what they can do. A lot of what they can do, first of all, they have to help get this pandemic under control. It will not be under control by the time of
by the time Biden will be in, right?
And I don't think it'll be under control by the time Biden gets to be president. So that's priority one. Priority two is to get the, which are kind of intertwined, get the economic, and not the economy, but get people back.
Yeah, just get people back.
Get people back. Now, here's something I was talking to today with some people down here. Getting people back. That's not going to be.
She's back.
Hey, Darlene, welcome back.
Speaking of being back, she's back.
Brian just said a lot of foolish things, and I said a lot of brilliant things. That's the same show every week. But, there's things like today. Okay, I was talking to a person. They used Uber sometimes 4 times a day to get around in Washington, D.C. They have not used Uber since March. Okay, Live Nation, which is a monopoly and terrible about concerts, but we're not going to go there tonight. They reported a 98% drop in profits. Okay. Now, I don't feel sorry for them, right? I feel sorry for all the people because of their 98% drop in profits that don't have work.
Right.
But I feel for the corporate. I mean, like the airlines. Of course, I was talking to a pilot the other day. He's done. He said, I'm done. His whole life he's dreamed of it, young black man. He said, we're in the next layoff. He said, there's no way. We're not making enough money. I said, what are you going to do? He says, I'll go home, live with my parents. What else can I do? I can't afford this.
And yet the airlines will get loans from the government. And
but you know where they're going to put the loans. I mean,
right.
Give them,
right.
But what is interesting is I think this would be a time, if you have creative thinkers, to really kind of look at an FDR type New Deal. Now, to be honest with you, I don't think we need stadiums, which was part of that, or the paintings or stuff. You need to give artists, and artists are going to need work too. But I think if you looked at infrastructure and look at clean energy, and so, and again, they're the two things that I think America could use right now. I mean, many things that we can do. We can't end racism tomorrow. Okay.
Right. Just put the money where it should go instead of where it shouldn't.
I'm not paying more taxes. Hey, bonehead. If you don't need to build aircraft carriers and destroyers for the Navy that don't want them. You don't have to build outdated tanks. What you do need to do, and I will submit this and I'll argue this to anybody, and they're they're entitled to be wrong. The two best things in the 21st century you can do for defense are education and health. The pandemic proves the one, and the fact that Trump can be elected proves the other.
Right.
This is not built on the backs of America. The strong workmen. Those days are gone. We can bemoan them. We can be sad about them. It's going to be a long time, and you've got to be creative. And there will be opportunities. There's always new opportunities. But right now, the main thing is we have to get the pandemic under control for any of this to happen. And again, I would ask tonight, I guess I am lobbying for Joe Biden tonight. I would ask everybody, unless you have no concern about the pandemic or COVID-19 or the coronavirus, whatever we're looking at, who has a better chance of helping America get back health-wise, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Well, to me, that's an absolute no-brainer. Who has the better chance of doing something, and I hate this term, but I'm going to use it, outside the box? Forget that. We're going to use this term. Who's going to be able to think of the creative new things that we need to do in this? We hadn't gotten out of the industrial age yet, meaning mindset-wise. We left that in 1962, 68. By 67, 68, we were moving toward this end. And we've been hesitant. People don't want to change. The factory work is gone, kids. They're gone. It's gone. Do you want to work in the coal mines? No. Let's take that ingenuity that we had, that was digging it out of the coal, and let's put it into clean energy.
Here, and that's where we could go.
And that's, I think, again, I mean, I sound like a broken record, so what the hell? I don't care. Everybody has to ask themselves this question. If you believe in coal, in the future of coal, Donald Trump is your man. If you believe in the future in a green environment and clean energy, Joe Biden is your person. If you believe, as 67% of Republicans polled do, that education is bad for America, Donald Trump is your man. If Joe Biden announced tomorrow he was putting a dead, diseased rat in as the Secretary of Education, that dead, diseased rat, even if it had been dead since 1945, would be a better Commissioner of Education than the current person we have, than Betty DeVoe. There's no question about that. It's like, who's the shortest pygmy? To me, she's probably the worst cabinet member, given the responsibility of what she has. So it just keeps coming down to that. Maybe we don't need to do this show anymore. What we'll do is just say,
you just wait till November 4th. You'll see.
I mean, just say, have everybody phone in, a question. Well, who's better for? And I'll give them the answer.
Right.
And I would challenge. I know it's the wrong audience tonight, but I would really. This is really. I just thought of this. Give me one positive thing that I would consider positive. Kids in cages, obviously Donald Trump considers it, and Stephen Miller, God, I think he masturbates to it. That's my feeling. But one really positive thing, that Donald Trump would be better than Joe Biden at. I can't think of one. I guess, maybe I'm drawing a blank. You got any, Brian? Something that you would consider positive, and you would say, yeah, in this case, Donald Trump would be a better president than Joe Biden.
I'm actually thinking right now. Usually I come up with one, and I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm going to exclude the stock market because I even think that Trump is worse for the stock market.
No, well, I think that's the biggest myth of all.
Right.
Good for the
You know what, Dave? I think you got me. I don't think.
I'm not trying to get you.
No, I understand that. I'm trying actually to think of anything that Trump would.
I mean, I think, again, sometimes I think, I don't mean, people say, oh, you put people on the spot. No. Tonight, if somebody says Joe Biden is not the guy, fine. Okay. Tell me who is the guy, right? And if you tell me, well, not you, but I'm saying if anybody tells me, well, Donald Trump is better, tell me what he's better at, and I guarantee you it'll be something that I don't think is the right thing to do.
Infinity says Venezuela, maybe, but I don't even know about that.
What, better for Venezuela?
Venezuela maybe handles the situation there better. I really don't know. I can't think of anything.
I see, again, Infinity, I like that. You'd have to explain a little bit better. I mean, not that you're not, it's me, not you, right? I mean, I think I know what you're saying, but that's the other thing I think Trump has done, which is not necessarily a bad thing, Brian. He has to make his very, because he doesn't do this. We have to really understand. One of the things that I think is lost in the rush for even doing this. I mean, I can't go into everybody's home. They wouldn't let me. But it's much better. At least this is face to face than phoning or just IM or that kind of thing. So many times we think we know what people mean and they don't, right? And I think we see that there needs to be care with words. Donald Trump doesn't use them, and look where we are. Of course, now sometimes I haven't, I mean, we don't need to focus on. I mean, George Bush is not voting for him. Mitt Romney is not voting for him. Colin Powell is actually actively.
Ben Sasse may not.
John Kasich is going to speak on Biden's behalf, according to reports, at the convention. Well, in his home. George will, who, I know very few people in Washington, D.C. on his level, his intellectual level. And George Will said not only is he not voting for Trump, but he believes that no American should vote for anybody who in any way supported Trump, whether it was in the House or the Senate. You've got the Lincoln Project. You've got all these people. So again, I think that kind of gives some validation to my accusation.
Which means that he only has one route to victory, Dave. One route and one route only.
Well, and you know what's interesting though, Brian? I don't disagree with you. But it's sort of like we know it. The Democrats know it.
Now you have to stop it.
And we have to stop it. And I don't know that it's as difficult as it sounds. It is difficult in the sense that before, I mean, to my knowledge, now I may be wrong, but right now, my concern with the Russians or foreign interference is more with the bots and poisoning the well. I don't know that they can get inside, the election system and change. That's the concern. Now, certainly, those Trumpites who are in
if he gets help from some Republicans, if they get help from Republicans, which I suggested.
I mean, what? I mean, Putin's not going to come over here and say, "Oh, Jimmy George," no.
No, but they may find out from some specific Republican, say, "Look, these are machines in this area that you have to fuck it over,"
That, but you know what?
Remember what Trump said. Wiki, if you have the 330, Russia, if you hear me, there's 30,000 emails from Hillary Clinton. I mean, right there.
But you want to know something? And I mean, I'm not going to spit on Bill Comey if I see him, because I think I know why he did what he did. But I also wonder, since you brought up the emails, I also wonder if he had made that announcement earlier or not at all, would that have had any impact on the race? We'll never know.
He shouldn't have said it.
I didn't say he should. I'm saying I think I know why he did. But it wasn't it wasn't basically to damage one or the other. I think my guess is that he did not want to be viewed, or did not want the FBI, whatever, to be viewed as collaborating in working to get Hillary elected. And I think, like everybody else, he was pretty sure it would happen. So
Oh, you're talking about Comey himself.
What?
You're talking about
Yeah.
Comey now. Yes,
Comey.
I agree with you.
I'll come out here, whether it was personal, whatever, and I'll do this thing, never thinking of the impact, And look, 11,000, right? 11,000 people in Pennsylvania made a difference. That's what it came down to. It'd be interesting, will there be, think about this for a moment, Brian, will there be 11,000 people in the state of Pennsylvania who either will not vote for Donald Trump this time, right, or will vote for Joe Biden this time? All you need is to wipe that out. And the margins are almost as small in Michigan, and they're almost as small in Wisconsin.
And
It's
he
not
knows
as
that.
unelectable.
That's what scares me. Trump knows that.
And so do the Democrats.
And
It's a level playing field in that respect. Okay? Yes, it is. Okay.
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I'll use the analogy. You just have to hope it works out right. I have one of my best friends from Bridgeton is cybersecurity, was for the Senate, is now working off-site for the executive branch, not for Trump, but for the cybersecurity and that end. And basically, he can't talk about his job, but basically he said it's kind of like this. I go home at 6 or 7 o'clock, our team goes home, and we're ahead. And overnight, the Russians or whomever, the Chinese, get ahead, and we come in the back next morning, and we get back ahead. And that's the kind of thing we have here. We just have to hope that in the moment when the votes are counted, the Democrats are ahead. Have been able to identify the challenge.
Well, I'm going to make one prediction.
Go ahead.
That the Divided We Stand channel will not end on November the 3rd.
Already said that.
And, if the election's on a Tuesday on the 3rd, we may have to have a Divided We Stand on the following Wednesday or Thursday because
Oh, no. You know what we should do, Brian? Let's we're not young men anymore, but you pulled all-nighters, right, in college?
Yes.
And you were a musician like I was. You spent 3 or 4 days out playing, no sleep. You were grabbing women. I was going to Bible study. Believe that. No, but the idea is, I'm really serious. I want to do a very long marathon. And we should just go around the clock. Like, you have to go to work if you're not incapacitated,
right,
or whatever. No,
Well, I have to watch the election if it's tight anyway. I was up till 2 a.m. with the previous one.
Well, yeah, no. Brian, I'm gonna.
This one you have to stay up. America will be awake.
It has to be a landslide of epic proportions for us to know that night who won. And if we don't get that, we might not know. Now, that's phase one. Phase two is, what does Donald Trump decide to do with those results? I don't think, although I don't know, he might be dumb enough. I don't think he'll challenge him if he won. I don't think, but it may be, right? I won the total vote too. I won it. No, he's not. Now, I'm going to go back to I think the worst president in my lifetime before Trump, and that would have been Richard Nixon. And I think Mr. Nixon proved that by having to resign. But Richard Nixon, for as bad as he was, he did have American interests at heart. And I think his finest moment goes unrecognized. I really do. And while I used to do this to Richard Nixon whenever he would come on TV when I was young, I now do this to Donald Trump. Donald Trump deserves twice as much fuck you as Richard Nixon did. Had Richard Nixon, and there are historians who concur, political science, had he challenged the results of the 1960 election, which were razor thin, it's a cliche,
right?
He probably would have been president of the United States. And a lot of people urged him to. He said, no, it's not worth it. It would tear the country apart. And I think, earlier we were talking about the difference between religion and now I think that's part of it. As hard as it is to believe, Kennedy was informed and influenced by his Catholic upbringing when he had fiddle and faddle and was doing a third F with them in the White House. Probably it doesn't appear that way, but he did. Richard Nixon was influenced by his Quakerism. Donald Trump's a fucking heathen. Okay, I mean, I'd love to know if he's ever been in church. The last time he was in church, he was outside. It had the Bible upside down, the wrong end, in the dumbest photo op in the history of the presidency. And I'd already ordered law-abiding protesters to be gassed. So that's Donald Trump. Trump won't be Nixon. Trump, if there's any opportunity, Trump will challenge. So when you say you're going to stay up, I don't think we'll know for a while, unless it is so overwhelming, right? And by overwhelming, I don't mean the vote count. I'm just talking about the number of states. If Trump loses Texas, it's over. I don't think it's going to happen. It's over. If Trump loses Florida, I don't think it's going to happen. It's over. If Trump loses Georgia, I don't think it's going to happen. It's over. If Trump loses North Carolina, that's a possibility. Assuming that, then some things start to fall. He needs to win every state that he won in 2016. There's no margin of error, because I don't see any place that he's going to win in 2020 that he didn't win in 2016. And I see at least 3 states, those states being Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which I do not think he will win. And I think there's anywhere, depending on the day, 3 to 5 other states that he may not. So, we'll know, right?
We'll see what happens, and we're getting closer.
My money, if I were a gambling person, I'm not. I'd put my money on Joe Biden, and not only would I be riding with Biden as far as my support, I'd be riding with Biden as far as my money in Vegas if I bet on those kinds of things.
Right. Well, Dave, I think we've had a show tonight. We were at the 2-hour mark.
Oh, hell, Brian. You're all falling apart. I can do another 6, 7, 8 hours. Can I show my Stormy Daniels backdrop?
No, you can't. Not tonight. Not that one.
Man.
You'll have us thrown off the air. I saw it already, and I can guarantee you there will not be a YouTube channel if you show that photograph.
That's one person. I think that's going to be my campaign budget.
Oh.
Who do you think Stormy Daniels is going to vote for? Donald Trump or Joe Biden? And I think she's going to vote for Joe.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say before I go is, I think the most absurd thing that Donald Trump has done already in this election is to attack Biden about his faith in God.
That's stupid shit.
Come on. And I go back and forth, I'm sorry. I think at the end, Donald Trump's just a stupid fuck who was lucky because his daddy gave him some money and nobody ever told him.
Isn't the way it always works, basically?
A lot of times. But you know what? He ain't going to win. It only works if he wins, and he ain't going to win.
I hope you're right.
No, I'm right.
All right.
Look how accurate I was last time.
I'll tell you what, if you lose on this one, I don't know what will happen, Dave. But anyway, Dave.
I won't lose on this one. And if I do, America loses.
Right.
We won't have a country.
Right, we won't have a country. We'll talk about secession. All right, Dave. Thank you for reminding me about prosecutorial. I need to remember that. And thanks. You did a great job tonight, Dave. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody. Remember, please, please, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. If you know some friends, share it with them.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian, we don't want to make any money on this, and we shouldn't.
We don't.
We just put the word out. So I'm thinking there is a calendar that I'm working on that has Brian posing in each month in different bikini briefs. And I think it'll be a bestseller.
Okay.
But we don't want any money for it. We will just give them away. If you get somebody to join the channel, and can you imagine at home, you can have a giant picture of January Brian, of February Bikini Brian, 12 different pictures of Brian in and they're all men's. Well, there's one that's a little question, but they're all men's bikinis. Just think about that, ladies and gentlemen. It's yours if you just bring somebody to the show.
Okay, I think we just may get kicked off of YouTube anyway. So Dave, I'm going to see. By the way, Dave, I am so thirsty. So when this is done, I'm going to be signing off on Skype too to get a drink. So I've been dying for the last half hour.
But I want to talk to you anyway. I mean,
Okay.
all right, Brian, be good.
I will see you tomorrow, Dave. All right.
Take care.